Man, do you hear that? Look at here. They're coming. They're coming. We're going to have a party. I'm talking good on barbecue. All right, guys. Welcome back here to Onyx out here in Denver in the Old Boy podcast. And we have another amazing guest lined up for us today. Chris Camozzi.
Camozzi, you
got it right. All right. I had a little intel on that beforehand. Chris, very decorated combat sports career, still in it. Here locally, friends with Luke, which Luke kind of connected us. And I was telling you, I remember watching back, back in the day when you had that brief stint on Ultimate Fighter before the whole jaw thing, which I want to talk about. But super stoked to have you here, man, and looking forward to chatting.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yes, sir. So we were kind of talking beforehand. You're kind of considering yourself a Denver native-ish.
Yeah.
Being here about 2/3 of your life, but born in NoCal.
Yeah. Northern California. So I was born in Alameda, and then we just lived through the Bay Area for a bit and ended up moving here for my dad's job. My dad was a Oakland cop, transferred out here to Denver. So.
Oh, and your brother's a cop too. So it kind of runs in the family.
Yeah, everybody but me.
Well, you've kind of been instilling justice in other ways. So.
Yeah. I'm probably the only one that's been arrested a few times in the family.
So, talk about like in high school growing up, like, obviously just looking at you. I mean, were you an athlete? Did you play football? I mean.
Yeah, I played every sport growing up. So, I mean, from when I was little, I was playing, soccer, baseball, swimming, football. Through high school, I played football a little bit. I played rugby, wrestling.
Yeah, I saw rugby on there. That one had me a little bit curious. I mean, was that something that in this area of Denver, there was a couple of rugby clubs, or kind of what brought you into that? That's interesting.
Yeah, my school had a club team. So it wasn't an official school sport, but we had a club team. And it was great because our team was kind of like the like misfits of it. We combined with another school, and it was just chaos. It was a bunch of like people you would love. I mean, we were getting fights on the field, everything.
That's why my intramural team was in flag football. We just forgot the flag part.
Yeah. I mean, we even had a game once where we were beating this team so bad, our own team started fighting each other. The coaches are like, "What the hell is the matter with you?" Like, you guys are out there punching each other. But yeah, it was great. It was fun. And then I played in college for 1 year. That was also a club team at college. And once that was done, I was like, man, college isn't for me. I had a great time doing it. I didn't really like the school part.
Yeah. Where'd you go to school at for that year?
Fort Lewis, so in Durango.
Okay.
Yeah.
That when I saw the rugby thing, when I was doing my research, I'm like, that's pretty rad. Cause I used to like when ESPN, I'm about 10 years older than you, but when like ESPN was just starting and they wasn't paying rights for jack shit, you could find rugby and Australian rules football all the time. And I remember watching and I was like, this is kind of badass, man. No pads, no nothing. Like, go out and stick somebody. And
yeah, I wish I would have started playing rugby and then gone to football. I feel like you learn how to tackle better.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, man, I get to put all these pads on now. Now you can just run your head into everything. So I feel like it would make it even better.
So when you say college isn't for you, what's the next step? What do you start doing work-wise?
Man, so let's see. What did I start doing work-wise? I came back and I just kind of, I don't know. For a minute, I accepted. I was like, I got nothing going. I'm going to end up working some job I hate. And, just the rat race of life. I think I was stocking warehouses and stuff. So, just lifting big, heavy things and filling the warehouses. The trucks would come in and it was terrible. It was like looking at the clock all day, like, 6 more hours. And then from there, I had some guys that I grew up wrestling with called me and they're like, hey, we started going to this gym and doing jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. You should come check it out. And so I had seen the UFCs early on and, followed them. I used to buy those DVDs and everything. And I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know how you got into it. So I didn't go there with any like aspirations of fighting. And then from day one, from going there, I was hooked. I started going every day just because I wanted to do it for a workout and I missed the like competitiveness. And literally I just got addicted to it. And then I ended up changing my whole life just so I could train. I started bouncing at clubs at night so I could train all day. And from there, like the fighting just progressed, started locally and then built it up to where I was starting to travel to Canada and fight on MFC. I know these guys are from Alberta.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was telling them I used to go out there a few times a year and fight. And from there, it just went into the Ultimate Fighter. You know, you just take those little steps up.
That's interesting because I think, I really haven't had a chance to have someone on that kind of just told that story of, because mostly it's, oh, I was a collegiate wrestler and then I started going here and this and that. But like, what's interesting about that is, so you kind of start jumping into it because you like it. It's a good workout, this and that. And I can understand you start getting around the gym, you start, seeing guys spar and roll and this and that. You're like, oh shit, man, this is cool.
Yeah.
But how does that discussion happen of like your trainer, whoever's, helping you, of going, hey, you should go get in a fight, or hey, we've got this opportunity coming up. Maybe it's at the National Guard Armory, some little, where you cut your teeth at for most things. You know what I mean? Like how does that even get brought up in conversation, or in at what point into like you training and being a part of the gym and like you said, kind of changing your routine around that you said, okay, I want to fight? Was it pretty like couple of weeks in or a little longer?
It was, I would say, it's either 6 or 9 months in, I took a fight. And essentially, the coach just came to me and he was like, hey, are you interested in fighting? If you are, I can get you on the show. So, but like backing up, I won't lie about it. I was getting in fights everywhere all the time anyway. So you'd see me coming in with like black eyes and stuff, and I was just partying a bunch. Always finding some reason to just create some trouble.
That's a lifestyle of
And bouncing. Yeah. There was a few every weekend, and I loved it. I was like, you're going to pay me for this? So yeah, and then I was fortunate actually the gym that I started at was called Gumm Mixed Martial Arts, Gumm. And so Brad Gumm, he was, I don't know, 5-6 years older than me. He wasn't much older than me, but he was in like UFC 25 and 27, and he'd been doing it forever. He was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was thinking, man, like he's barely older than me, and he'd already had like 40 fights. But I was fortunate to walk into his gym because I didn't do any research on the gym like you should now. Anybody listening, you should definitely look up the gym you're going to, because there's a lot of trash ass gyms out there, people that pretend to know what they're talking about. So that was by pure luck for me that he was a good coach. He knew what he was talking about. He had experience. And I'm super grateful that I walked into that gym. Yeah. There's a few others.
just dumb luck.
Yeah. Yeah. I should have researched it, but, going back, I would. So yeah, that was good because then I got to, basically it was a really small gym too. I think I had 2 or 3 training partners
Oh,
at the beginning, because he had just started the gym. He had just retired from fighting and bought the gym from his coach. So there wasn't a lot of training partners or anything. So I got a lot of like one-on-one work with him like every day, whether it was jiu-jitsu or him holding pads, everything. So I took full advantage of it. I was going 3 times a day.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just getting addicted to it. And that's what I need in life. I'm real like ADD and all over. So if I find something that I love and want to focus on, I'm usually pretty good at it.
Committed. Yep.
Yeah.
And what was it like that first fight? Was it one of those things like you don't know what you don't know, so let's fucking go figure it out? Or is it nervous and fearful as shit?
I wasn't too nervous. Actually, I'm trying to remember. I think I was a little bit nervous, right? Because this is the first one. I sold a ton of tickets. I think I had like, I don't know, 200 or 300 friends come. I sold a ton of tickets.
Dude, that's no pressure.
I was partying a bunch back there too. So everybody's like, oh, you're going to fight for real? I want to see this. They'd seen me getting a bunch of other fights. I'm sure a bunch of them wanted to see me lose too. But yeah, so I remember, God, there's so many dumb mistakes you make that.
Oh, I'm sure.
I remember thinking like, oh, I got to be like super hyped up for this. Remember Stacker? So like in the back, I took like 2 of them in the locker room and everything, like pre-workout, and go out there. And we had like this battle. I was 18 and I fought a guy who was in the Army, I guess, down in Fort Carson. And I was fighting a heavyweight. I didn't cut any weight. I had to drink some water at weigh-ins to make it. I don't even know why we did heavyweight. I think it was just back then it was like you kind of fight somebody close to your size. So fighting this like big jacked guy. And yeah, we just kind of threw down. I ended up actually losing. I think it was a split decision. He took me down a couple times. I was just so focused on punching. Even though I started wrestling, wrestling was my background. I was so focused on like hit him as many times as you can. And yeah, so I ended up getting taken down a few times, and I was real basic and new at jiu-jitsu and stuff. So I lost, but I felt good because he threw up in the ring after, and I think he lost some teeth.
You're like, I'm pushed.
All right. Now working band bell. Yeah, I more got held down than beat up. So it was a plus. And then after that, though, I was like, all right, now I got to do this, take it more serious, stop drinking during training camps, eat right. And then from there, just kind
So
of,
after the first fight, that was enough to be like hooked.
yeah, I would say the first fight, I was taking it serious.
Yeah,
I was training hard, but my life outside wasn't like,
it was hard. Yeah, it wasn't hard.
yeah, it wasn't like an athlete should be.
Yeah,
But it's all live and learn. I mean, this was forever ago, back when you could be good at like one dimension back then. There
that's
were
right.
like just jujitsu guys or boxers or kickboxers. I'm sure T told you that too. Like it progressed really fast. As I go to local fights now and I'm like, the level of talent for just being like locally, I'm
Yeah,
holy shit. Like
yeah.
they were,
Yeah, what would have built you on the national circuit 20 years ago?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's interesting too to watch. When you think about it, it's kind of one of the things I like about when I grew up in the areas. I'm old enough to remember UFC 1, UFC 2, and the tournament style and this and that, and then just to watch what it's turned into.
it's insane.
And then what it's just done for actually just combat sports and mixed martial arts overall, not just the big UFC juggernaut, but all the other things that have kind of spun out of it and gave, others opportunity. And I'm sure for you too, having a career that's, been a nice long career. I mean, you've seen a ton of change.
Yeah, a ton. It's funny because when I started, I was like younger than everybody. I was 18. I think I turned pro real fast. I did one amateur fight, the one that I lost.
And then boom, next one's a pro fight.
Yeah.
Damn, old boy.
Yeah. Because at the time, like, I don't even know, I'm sure Trevor would remember this. And there was a small stint here in Colorado where they outlawed amateur MMA. And so I had another fight lined up. And so the promoter called my coach and he was like, hey, the fight's off because, Colorado just passed this thing. There's no amateur MMA. He's like, now he can fight the same guy, same date, everything, but he's got to turn pro. So I did. They gave me $200 to fight.
And what does is it just the $200 that makes you pro, or do you have to like get some license?
You have to get licensed, and then also you get paid. But
Please tell me the licensing was less than $200.
yeah, I think it was like $50.
We made money. Yeah,
Right. And but I was like, yeah, fuck it, like you're gonna pay me to do this. I was gonna do it for free anyway. So that was cool. And then from that pro fight on, I won like 7 in a row. And that's when I started going to Canada and stuff. And I felt like I was on a tear, and then I did lose one in Canada. But yeah, I started stringing together like long win
runs.
streaks, and yeah, luckily it worked out. I mean, it could have gone way worse.
Yes, for sure. What as you're kind of hitting that first win streak, you're looking back on it, what would you say your style was more of? We stand up and throw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know. It's just like ability. It's all right.
Let's use that black belt in jujitsu or anything, old boy.
Yeah. Right. Why would you? Life would be probably easier. But yeah, I mean, I love jujitsu and stuff, but for some reason, like fight wise, I was always drawn to like striking.
What?
I was real hooked on like Muay Thai for a long time, and now it's boxing, which kind of changing those disciplines also keeps it fresh. I think, you don't get stale and tired of it, because when I switched from MMA to bare knuckle boxing, we just focused on boxing, and it was like starting over again, but it was fun and like intriguing to me. So then I was like addicted to that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, okay, you understand the discipline, but now that that's the only thing you're going to do, you can really dig into it,
Yeah. Cause when I left the UFC, I signed with Glory Kickboxing, which is like the UFC of kickboxing, but I had never kickboxed before. I trained it forever, but never competed. So my first fight was at Madison Square Garden, and which was awesome. But at the same time, I was like, what am I getting into? Because like you got all these Dutch guys and stuff that had like 200 fights.
Yeah.
And, but that worked out too. But it was cool to step back from MMA and just focus on kickboxing. And I was like, man, there's way more hours in the day now when you don't have to do like, people don't realize like MMA, there's literally not enough hours in the day to get all the disciplines in. You have to like sacrifice some things, make some things work. Cause if you're doing wrestling, jiu-jitsu, you're doing Muay Thai, maybe you're doing boxing too, but then you got to drill all of those. Then you got to spar, then you got to hit mitts, then you got to do strength and conditioning and cardio. Then you have wrestling days. It is so much. So being able to focus on one discipline, like opens it up way more,
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And probably provides a little bit more confidence going into a match, because it's always about preparation, right?
Yeah.
And if you're really only focused on this one discipline and that's what you've been drilling and practicing and sparring, you just feel more confident than trying to spread that same amount of time over 4 or 5 different disciplines, I would think.
Yeah. And I mean, nobody's great at all of them. I mean, pretty soon we're going to start seeing guys that are great at all of them because it's just getting to that level.
That's super athletes being built, yeah.
But yeah, you usually got a guy that, you know, D1 wrestler or whatever. And like wrestling's still their base, but they're learning to box, they're learning to kick. But they're known for wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's cool to take a step back and try to become a specialist in one thing. Because when I'm training for bare knuckle boxing, like the only thing I'm doing is I spar a couple times a week, I hit mitts, you know, and I do my cardio, strength and conditioning. And from there, like I can do those multiple times a week and be able to just like repetitive. Where before wrestling, it was one day a week we wrestle, you know, and it's just so hard to keep up with.
All right, proud sponsor of the show, better damn well be Whiskey Bent BBQ. So this is a brand that Nicole and I started a little over a decade ago. You can find our rubs and seasonings in about 500 different retail locations throughout the U.S., Academy Sports, select Ace Hardwares, and then obviously here at our store in Lakeland, Florida. If you want to go check it out, please feel free to. WhiskeyBentBBQ.com, and you can use my discount code OhBoyPodcast for 15% off. The bare knuckles, since you brought it up, I wanted to talk about it. To me, that seems like like we were talking before we started recording. You know, I kind of got introduced to it through Chad Mendez from our friendship, and he was talking about how much he liked it. You know what I mean? And kind of a very similar discussion on what you're talking about. Hey, it's just nice to focus on one discipline. Know that this is the job you got to do. You know what I mean? And he said it really kind of got him fired back up for, you know, one last run, you know what I mean? To go out and compete and have some fun. And I remember after the first one, he's like, man, I love these. Like, I think there's some real legs to this. Like I think there's plenty of guys that would love, you know, one more go. But like you said, somewhere where you can just really focus on one discipline and go have some fun with it and make a little bit of money. And listening to you talk about it and preparing for our discussion since you came on board with it, like you just seem to have this natural passion for it, especially after I know the last fight didn't go the way you wanted to.
Yeah.
But I feel like you want to run that one back if the opportunity's there, because you definitely did not. If you were to just, a lot of times I'll look at a fight and say, I really don't care what the scorecard looks like, but show me the two guys.
Yeah.
And I think to that test, and it was a split decision anyway, right? I mean, it was really close. But I love when you came back out and said, well, how about the next time we just no rounds? Like, fucking until somebody wins.
Yeah.
But that speaks volumes of your conditioning too. Have you always put conditioning as a priority like that?
Yeah, I think, I don't know what it is. I don't look like it. Like I'm not shredded. Like you saw Archie and the guy get out of here after practice. They're all jacked. I've never been like super shredded, but my cardio has always been really good, you know?
Yeah.
From the UFC to early on, like cardio has always been a thing for me. But I also just like the sheer like willpower and heart of like, let's go till somebody wins. Like the original UFC, you beat
your shit.
Yeah, it wasn't great for TV on some of them because, you know, they end up just wrestling for, I think Hoist Gracie and Sakuraba had was it like 3 hour Japan? It wasn't the most exciting to watch, right? Especially if you don't know what you're watching.
Right.
So I understand why there's
the true sections, it was beauty.
Yeah.
But to the other 99.8% of the people in the world, they were like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, they're like, this sucks, turn it off. But yeah, I mean, I still like that idea, even if you did make it rounds, but you just go unlimited rounds. And I think, you know, boxing used to be like that. And who was it? It was, I think Ray Boom Boom Mancini, right? They stopped doing that because he killed that Korean guy.
He did.
Yeah, so I can understand it. But that's why I was telling Lorenzo, the guy I fought, I'm like, how about, because BKFC just shows in Thailand. We'll go to Thailand where they don't give a shit. Like they'll let anything go.
Yeah.
We can just do it till somebody wins. And then, you know, he wasn't up for taking that.
Yeah, didn't figure he was.
And he's, you know, unfortunately, like you said, I would love to get it back. And I was pushing for it forever. And now I don't know if it'll happen. He just got suspended for, I think it's 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think I'll be around in 2 years.
Yeah.
You know?
So was that the performance in PEDs or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A heavy amount.
Well, which ones?
I think it was like Tren and his,
shit.
Somebody said his test is like 28 or 2,900 or yeah. I was like, how do you not have a heart attack? But,
dude, that thing's just walking around hard the whole time.
So we'll see. I'm still hoping because I would like to run her back, if the timing works out, cool. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And
Yeah, so if it's not him, do you have anybody in your sights for who could be next bare knuckle?
no, I mean, I just keep telling them, I'm
Wait to
like,
hear it?
yeah, like, let's get this title thing going. Originally, they told me I'll probably be in a 4-man tournament, for the title, but I haven't seen it on paper or anything.
Which for you, I mean, that's kind of perfect for what you're talking about timeline wise. I mean, that's a guaranteed at least 2 more fights.
Yeah, I was hoping it'd be one night.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll do that.
You like doing savage shit. One night tournaments and let's go unlimited rounds. I like it, old boy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be old one day, so I need to have some stuff to talk about.
You know what I think is cool though is a lot of guys, regardless of what their career is or what a certain opportunity within their career is, when that window is starting to close.
Yeah,
And I feel like just stepping back and looking at the way you've kind of set up what's life 40 on for you, you've done a great job of making that work now. I mean, you're doing the commercial real estate brokerage.
yeah.
I can see, with you and Whitney, you guys are doing some cool stuff with different brands. You've got the jujitsu app, several things. Like, when did you start having those thoughts of, hey, you can only fight for so long, you only got so much shelf life. I want to use this as an opportunity to set up the rest of my life doing shit that I like with people I like that I have genuine interest in.
I mean, I've thought that most of my career since I started, because the fact of the matter is MMA doesn't really pay life money.
Mhm.
There's some guys starting to make it now, where they're in the millions and stuff, but most guys that you see once they leave, they still have to have a job.
Yeah.
And I've watched that forever. I mean, even in the beginning, my coach, Brad, who I was telling you about
Mhm.
the very beginning, his first UFC fight was on pay-per-view and everything. He said he got $500. That's to be in the UFC and everything. He's like, I spent more flying my coaches and everything. He's just negative. It's not that now. Like, I made good money in the sport, but nothing like livable to where I'm like, oh, I can just be retired.
Yep.
These NFL guys get NFL, NBA, basketball, all the other major sports, they get, pensions and stuff if you're in a certain amount of time. MMA, your last check is your last fight, and then it's what you do outside of that, whether that's, like Hendo, some of those guys roll their name into like a whole brand of like companies and
Yep.
sponsorships and stuff like that. So I've always had that in the back of my head, and just living off MMA money was never fun because you don't know if you're like, you get paid.
Yeah.
And then you don't fight for a while and that's the only money you have. So you're watching it go down and you don't know if you're going to blow your knee out or something. And sure. So if you blow through all that money and you're like, oh, my next fight's coming up, and then you tear your ACL, then what?
Yeah.
And I grew up real broke. So I've always had that mentality of like, never go back to that.
Yeah.
So just always have backup plans.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I love it. And speaking of jobs, you had made a comment too. I saw in a discussion you had where you strongly advise guys that you're training or helping in their career, like, don't fucking quit your job. Like, try to have that job as long as you can have that job. And I think it's a lot of what you just said, it's a lot of that testament.
Yeah, that, and especially I'm a firm believer, like, these guys have families and stuff. It's really hard to bet your family and your kids and everything on that, like being reliant on you. So at least even if you're not working, hopefully they invest that money into like housing or something, something that brings an income, even if you don't have like a job. I always think it's smart, because nothing's guaranteed. Even, in the UFC, the contracts, none of them are guaranteed. You could sign a 10-fight contract and they could cut you after the first one and they don't have to pay you on any of it.
So I don't want to shit all over the UFC, but it's just like some important questions, right? Like how do they get away with no pension and no guaranteed contracts? Is it just because they're the biggest game in town and they can write the rules? Like even from I don't know, like you think about all the antitrust and those type of things that, NFL and some of the other organizations run against, like the fact that they're kind of almost untouchable and can just do that is,
They're all unionized.
yeah.
We don't have a union in MMA.
That's,
Every time one's tried to start, it gets, I love the UFC. I have a great relationship with them still, but they're, as a business, genius.
oh yeah.
They're like, there will be no union. They will shut it down. And like, you're talking about $1 billion company. You're going to battle with them.
Yeah.
And they're going through a class action lawsuit right now. That's gotten a lot further than anybody thought. And I don't know if they took the settlement or not. I remember seeing It was like a couple 100 million.
What's some of the details of that? What's that around?
I forget what all the details are. I'm part of it. Apparently I got a letter in the mail that was like, if you don't want to be part of it, opt out. But I was like, well, I'll let them run with it, because they might, because their books were never open. So you didn't know if your split was actually correct.
Yeah.
They're a private company.
It wasn't until they did the act until they went with
WME.
Yes.
Yeah. Because so champions and stuff, they get pay-per-view points, right?
Mhm.
So say the UFC is like, we'll give you 25-cent bonus per pay-per-view sold. Well, at the end of that, they give you a check. They can show you the numbers, or they can be like, oh, it was this many pay-per-views, but they don't actually show you the real thing that says that. So they could have been bullshitting those numbers too, and which is going to be a big thing if that is true.
Wow. That's interesting. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit.
Yeah. It's a lot to read. I mean, I followed it for a bit, and I was just like, all right. I heard nobody opted out. Everybody on the entire roster. You don't have to be a part of it and like go to court and stuff,
Right.
but you just sit and wait. Maybe a check will come.
Well, and I think that's kind of like, I would think most had kind of the mentality, like you said, like, well, shit, it ain't costing me any time or effort or anything like that. It's just, and I was part of it. Maybe I did get impacted and don't know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, here you go.
Yeah. And the simple fact of the matter, though, is like most class action lawsuits are like, lawyers are just scavengers, right?
Oh, yeah.
So from what I read, like lawyers that take on class action lawsuits will end up taking like 70% of the money.
Yeah.
They're doing it pro bono.
Yeah.
So really the payout isn't,
Right.
it doesn't come out what it should be.
Yeah. When they do that pro bono, I'm going to represent you.
Yeah.
Class act.
Thanks for the help.
Yeah, exactly. Why do you think there's always, if you've ever lived at Camp Lejeune for 20 years and we're exposed to asbestos, give us a call.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? It's like that's
We'll send you a 50-cent check.
And we'll appreciate the 20 that we got of that. The $20. No, that's funny. Speaking of UFC, you're kind of one of the things you got to do there was the Ultimate Fighter. And kind of early into Ultimate. I mean, Ultimate Fighter had been established, but I want to say that was Ortiz Liddell, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little. So you fight your way into the house, but during that fight into the house, didn't you break your jaw?
Yeah.
That had to. I mean, the emotion of that had to be just. Yeah, walk us through it.
Yeah. So my journey to the Ultimate Fighter was longer than people realize. So I was the alternate for season 7.
Okay.
Where I was real close to making the show. So that was a little discouraging too. They called me and they're like, hey, you're not on the show, but we want you to be the alternate. I'm like, all right, cool. What does that mean? They're like, well, you're going to come to Vegas. You'll make weight. So I had to cut weight, everything. And you're just going to be sitting in your hotel. If we come get you or we call you, like you're in. So those guys were fighting to get into the house. And if anybody missed weight or anybody was hurt, sick, whatever, they had 3 of us on standby. In the hotel, but it was terrible because I had to make weight and everything in the hotel room and just be sitting there and I waited all day on weight, and 185 is a big cut for me. So all day I'm just like laying on the bed wondering if anybody was going to miss weight or anything. And then it was probably like 4:00 in the afternoon. They called me and they're like, hey, you're good. So I'm like, all right, fine. Like now you could eat and drink and stuff, but then that was discouraging. So I ended up going home. Keep doing what I'm doing, keep fighting, everything. And then I get a call. I don't remember how many years later it was. I think it was 2010 I was on the show.
Yeah.
So I get a call from the producers and they're like, hey, we're doing your weight again. You don't need to try out. You don't need to do any of this. Like we were already basically going to pick you the last time. Just put in an application.
Mhm.
And so then I was in. So going there, they don't tell you anything. The biggest question people ask is it scripted? Is it fake? I can tell you for a fact it's not fake or anything. When I was at the airport going to Vegas, they don't tell you if you're fighting to get in the house, if you're just on the show.
It was coming.
Nothing. Yeah. So when I'm checking in Denver, I log in on the kiosk or whatever, and I have a return flight for Monday. And this is like, I think it was like a Wednesday or Thursday. So I see I have a return flight already pre-booked. So I'm like, all right, I'm fighting to get into the house. So I call my coach and everything. It doesn't matter, but like mentally, I was like, all right, I know exactly what's going on. And I ended up fighting a friend of mine. His name is Victor O'Donnell from Ohio. So of course, I'm like, out of everybody here, I had like 2 friends on the show. I'm like, of course, it's one of them. And so we had a great fight. It was the Ultimate Fighter is 2 5-minute rounds. with a sudden death third round if it's split. So we go the 2 rounds. The judges come back in. They're like, hey, keep your gloves, everything on. We're going to another round. And we had just been smashing each other, you know. I ended up winning the decision. And by the end of it, I had broken his orbital and he broke my jaw. So he left on a stretcher. We didn't know my jaw was broken though. So I'm like on an adrenaline high, everything happy. I knew something like hurt,
Mhm.
but whatever. So we go, they load us up, they put us in the vans, and then now the show starts. So you get to the house, everybody runs in, and I was the last fight. So all these other guys had, you know, I was there hours just watching these fights go by. All these other guys are running in the house to get their room and everything, and I'm fucked up. I'm hurting. I'm just like, I'll take whatever bed is there. Like, I don't care. I don't want to go upstairs. I have to come down. I'm like asking. I'm like, is there a bed up there? You know, kind of stumbling around. And the next day, training starts. You know, so I'm going to training. Keep thinking something's wrong. I think I broke one of my teeth or something.
Mhm.
Just like pretty bad pain. And we start sparring and drilling. And every time I get hit, I'm just like, hold on, like grabbing my face, kept like taking a knee. And then finally it was like a week or week and a half in, the producers were like, we need to take you to the doctor. Like something's wrong. Cause I wasn't eating.
Yeah.
My weight was low, which was great because making 185 is hard for me. So I was only drinking like protein shakes and stuff because everything hurts you. And yeah, they take me to the doctor. Long story short, find out that my jaw is broken. So it was like down here, my chin. So because it had been about a week and a half, I can't remember exactly, they didn't wire my mouth shut. They're like, hey, it's already healing. The doctor was like, you can have a choice. We can wire it shut or you can agree to not chew anything for the next 6 weeks. And I was like, I will absolutely not chew anything for the next 6 weeks. Getting your mouth wired shut, terrifying.
Absolutely.
I already can't breathe out of my nose. I wonder if I get a cold or something. And then you're like, yeah, what if you get the flu and you have to throw up? I've always wondered like those things, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, thank God. Yeah, I will not chew anything. But I went home. I was devastated. I was like, all of this, I had some of the most fights in the house already. A lot of the other guys were a lot newer. So I had been at it a lot longer and they don't tell you anything. So I went home. I ended up getting a job because I quit my job. I was working at the clubs and it was like one of those like, fuck you, I'm out. I quit. I'm in the UFC. Yeah. Like, yeah, literally it was like 2 weeks later. People were like, I thought you were leaving.
And then you got to tell that story 100 times.
Well, you can't either. So you're
Oh, you can't. Yeah, that's right.
you're tied to the NDA because the show's still filming. So I just had to be like, oh, I was just fucking around. I'm playing, like blah, blah, blah. So I got a job at a tech company. Of all things, I don't know anything about tech. I could barely check my email. But it was a guy from the gym owned a tech company. And he's like, you can come work for me doing sales. So I did that for a bit. And that's a whole nother story because it was a disaster, but I learned a ton. And just, I was like depressed, sitting there thinking like I'm going to have to heal up and then start doing like regional fights again. And then I ended up getting a call to be on the finale because basically Joe Silva was like, look, you didn't lose.
Right.
We had to send you home because of this. So we're going to let you come back on the finale.
And that's cool as hell.
It was, yeah. Oh man, when I got that call, my manager called and I was like, no way. I was like, are you fucking with me right now?
But because at that time too, like for something like that to happen, that shows they respect you.
Yeah.
But that's a real respect move.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was like there's a lot of people that hate Joe Silva and stuff, but there's certain things where like I'm real loyal to like certain opportunities given to me. And that was a really cool moment because they didn't have to do that. There's a million other guys they can bring.
Yeah.
So I won on the finale and then I won a couple more and yeah. It went from there.
I'll tell you, man, that one that I loved, I want to make sure I don't get it wrong, was that was it a 26 second knockout?
Oh yeah.
With Riggs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Dude, that was, now you hit him with a good shot and then a couple of combos in those knees. I've always thought knees is like the most badass way to finish a guy.
Hey, me too. I was like, that was like the best feeling in the world because I got the bonus. So it was, I can't remember if it was 50 or 100,000, then my pay, everything. And so I'm real cordial with Riggs. Like we still talk every once in a while. And rewinding, I used to go to Arizona when I wasn't in the UFC. We had the same management company. So I would go train with like Bader and all those guys out there. And Riggs was there. And I remember being like, man, I grew up watching him. So I was like, it was cool to see him in the gym and sparring and everything. And then like fast forward a couple years, I had to get him to fight each other. Yeah. Yeah, that was a brutal one, man. I mean, I love it, but it also, now that I like him and know him, I'm like, man, I feel bad. Like I fought quite a few of my friends actually. And it ended up, because it broke his arm. It broke his orbital, his arm, and like a bunch of things.
What is it with you and orbital bones, old boy?
I mean, orbital is real common in fights.
Yeah.
Death, but oh God. Yeah.
No, that's funny. And then I know you had a little bit of time with PFL. How did you like? You seem like you kind of a tournament guy. How do you like that format?
I like the idea of a tournament. I think that their point structure sucks.
Well, tell me about them. What you share what your thoughts are. How you would maybe.
I mean, I barely understand it. Yeah, when I was fighting, I didn't know how the points work. I'd have to ask him after each fight, like, what does that mean? Even like Rogan goes in on it. He's like, I follow the sport all the time, but I have no idea how the point structure
Yes.
Nobody fighting did. When I was there, we were asking questions. We're like, wait, you get how many points for what? This? Like, and then the other side of it that really sucked was we were the first fight. So not the UFC. The UFC kept going with Fight Island and everything. When I went to PFL, the season I was in was like post-COVID, right? Or when things were opening back up, but there was no crowd. And luckily I did the Ultimate Fighter. So I was like, this isn't like that foreign to me. Some of those guys were thrown off big by it. Yeah, because there's no music, there's no crowd. It's just, you're in a silent room with about this many people fighting. And they made us quarantine. So the first fight, I had to go 17 days early in Atlantic City. And they had this quarantine.
I would be in Atlantic City for 17 days ever.
No. And it was, I say like, it was like luxury jail. I won't say it was like the same thing, but literally like you're in your hotel room, and it wasn't a suite or anything. It's literally a normal hotel room. For 17 days, you can't really leave. You could leave to train, and that was about it. So you could go twice a day to like the gym, but you had to schedule those too to make sure too many people weren't in there. And those fill up real quick. So there were certain times I'm just like shadowboxing in my room, and you're just confined. I didn't get to go outside for 17 days, like no fresh air.
That's wild.
And you're in like a casino still, even though we were separated from everybody.
Yeah.
But the food was terrible. It was like they would deliver like 2 hard-boiled eggs for breakfast. They'd like leave them outside your door. And then they started stepping up the breakfast and food because everybody's complaining. But then they had no idea to like, everybody's dieting. So they would be like mashed potatoes and like fried stuff. And the food was absolute.
Could you fried steak over mashed potatoes and gravy?
Yeah, it was like biscuits and gravy some mornings and stuff. Like, you know that everybody here is cutting weight, right? And then it was like for dinner and stuff, you could order your own. They gave you a little bit of per diem. But have you ever ordered food in Atlantic City? Like, I tried one time to find like a salad, just a salad place.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. There's Italian food, pizza, and a bunch of trash. So it was really hard. I ended up ordering like a Foreman grill. I was ordering things off Amazon to my room all the time. I ordered a pool. And they were like, you need to, they kept getting on me. They're like, you need to get that stove out of here. Because like I posted a video like cooking, and the hotel came after me for that, and just all these things. I filled the pool with water, and I was just like floating around in this thing in the room, and just dumb shit because you get so bored.
Well, I'm sure you'd stir crazy.
Yeah, and my girlfriend went with me, so none of my coaches could go, which was the other side, because you know they run businesses, they were gyms. So to step away for call it 20 days when it's all said and done. So the option was either the coaches could quarantine with you, show up with you, or they could show up the day of the fight
And just test.
Yeah. And so that's the other thing. In the quarantine, we had to test every day still. And I was like, if this is a real quarantine, why the fuck do I have to be tested if nobody's coming in and they shove that thing up your nose every day? And it was rough.
Yeah.
And it was great for my relationship though, because my girlfriend and I we had been dating like 6 months, and I had nobody to go with me. She's like, I work from home. She's like, I'll go with you. I'm like, cool. Back up. Like,
yeah, let's go.
She was going nuts too. She's sitting there like in the hotel room every day, but luckily we had like no fights. We got along great. And I think that made us even like closer. So that was like the one upside to it.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, it sucked.
Well, and then when you get out there to fight, like last night, we were, when we got back, talking fighting all day. So what are you going to do? You're going to watch fights.
Yeah.
Then we watched Justin and Ferguson. And it was, a COVID fight, right? And you're sitting there. I mean, especially the way Justin just beat I mean, and the way Ferguson just kept taking
Yeah,
punishment.
he's tough.
And you're going, if this was in front of a sold out crowd, it would have been like Holloway Gate as far as just pandemonium, right? With a crowd. Like you see a
Absolutely.
great fight like that, and you're like, well, Rogan and the broadcast crew and about 2 dozen people got to enjoy that, even in person. You know what I mean? Like wild.
It is a weird thing. Like I'll say the fighters, I think definitely play off the energy of the crowd, you know?
Oh, you got to.
I
You
mean,
got to.
you like to think that you don't, but there's, I mean, me at least, and I've talked to some friends, like when you start, if you hear people boo, then you're like, oh, I got to do something. Like, you know, and then if you hear people go nuts, you get hyped. So when it's just dead silent, it's kind of like, I mean, I guess Pride was like that when I used to watch all the old Pride fights in Japan. Be dead silent. There'd be like a golf clap as something good happens.
We were actually BSing with Coach T about that yesterday after the podcast. We were talking about how it's so funny how quiet,
Yeah,
but how full the arenas are.
100,000 people. Insane. They're bigger than our football stadium.
Yeah, it's so wild too. Like typical Americans, like we think we have the biggest of everything. And I remember the first time I saw a Pride fight, and they panned over that arena, and I'm like, we ain't got shit when it comes to combat sports yet.
I don't even see the guy at the top.
Exactly. Bad part is he couldn't see shit either, probably.
No, guaranteed. I always used to think about that. I'm like, who's sitting up there? Like, do they have giant like binoculars? Like, what's the point of even going? Kind of at that point.
And speaking of that, you've had an awesome career, got to experience a lot of things. Talk about some of the cool places. Like I know yesterday we were talking a little bit about getting to spend time in Abu Dhabi, and some of the places that this career is kind of taking you that you just know wouldn't have been in the cards otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super fortunate. I was thinking about it on the way here. I was, because like I said, I've got a couple more fights in, maybe a year or two. We'll see. Um, so starting to think and reflect on those things is really cool and also like sad, because like I think like I owe everything in my life probably to this sport, or at least combat sports, because I did a few different ones. Right. I mean, without that, I don't think I would be shit. I would probably still be stocking the warehouse, or maybe not, because I'm like I want better things all the time, but it gave me everything, so I'm very like, I love the sport. I will always be a fan. I'll always support people in it. Because I got to travel the world.
Yeah.
I know before that, I don't know if I'd ever been out of the country before going to Canada to fight. No, I hadn't. Yeah, I had to get a passport and everything, because it was a short notice fight, the first one they signed me on. And then since then, I think I've fought in maybe like 15 countries. But yeah, cool places. I loved Brazil.
Yeah.
I went to Rio. I fought there once, which is cool because the downside was I was fighting a Brazilian. So, they hate you.
Yes.
But like one of my coaches, he has a bunch of gyms in Rio back then. And so when I went, he was like, I'll come pick you up. I'll take you to this, that. So I had everything set up because he was a local there, and he's kind of like a legend around there.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Proud sponsor of the show, Trollco Clothing. Love what the brand's about. It's all about supporting that blue collar worker. You know them for their trademark shirt and hat, dirty hands, clean money. It's not just a slogan, it is a lifestyle. Go visit trollcoclothing.com and use my discount code OldBoyPodcast for 15% off.
So that's one of them. Let's see. There's something I liked about everywhere,
Yeah.
Like I fought in Sweden, and we stayed in like Old Town Stockholm, where like there's still buildings from the Vikings there. So,
oh, that's rad.
Yeah, I went to one of the oldest bars in the world. It was below a restaurant still, and that's where they said the Vikings used to all drink and stuff before getting on the ships, because it's right by the harbor.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah, and I forget what year, like I'll butcher it, but I mean, when I saw the year, I was like, holy shit. But yeah, hell, it was all stone. It was like a cave. It was in the bottom of this restaurant because they built a restaurant over it. The Stockholm was really, really cool just because I love history.
Yeah. Oh, it's rich.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, there's something everywhere. I fought in Russia. That was a cool experience. I lost the fight, so that sucks, but Russia was really cool.
Yeah, it was. We had Tim Johnson on, and he was talking about fighting Fedor in Russia.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. He's old boy was in the locker room about to come out. He's like, so if I do beat him, do I get out of this country alive?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's actually probably because it's I mean, that's like Khabib back home. You know what I mean? Like Fedor's like
I turned down a fight because of something like that.
Really?
Yeah. I don't really turn down many fights.
Yeah.
That might be the only one. Um, I got called. This this sounds really crazy, and I was like, "Wait, why are you calling me?" I got called to fight on a private show for Putin at one of his mansions in Russia, and it was like at first I was like, "Absolutely, that sounds awesome!" Like a little scary,
Yeah.
awesome, and because Putin did this for like 3 years, he did one a year. Um, you could Google it if you look back, and it would just be him and a bunch of like Russian oligarchs and celebrities and stuff there. So at his house, and the problem was they wanted me to fight this guy named Amagov, who used to be in the UFC. Yeah. And right before that, I mean, it was like 2 or 3 months before they offered me this fight. He was in the news for stabbing a guy and killing a guy in Russia because he was like a Russian mobster. He was like, that's why the UFC kicked him out. He had like Russian organized crime ties and stuff. And that's what they wanted me to fight. So I told the guy, I was like, listen, is there anybody else that I could fight? Like, what happens when I win? Or like,
Somebody that's not.
yeah, I'm going to go to Russia. I'm going to be at Putin's house and just all Russians. And then I'm going to fight this guy that's a Russian gangster. Like, it doesn't seem like that.
You understand why those Americans having a little bit of second thoughts.
I know. I was like, well, I'm going to need Beto to corner me, Tim Kennedy, or all these guys. Like, how are we getting out? And finally, I was just like, I thought about it for a bit. And I was like, man, I'm sure it would be fine, but I'm good. Because they wouldn't give me another opponent. I was like, who else could I fight? I was like, this guy just stabbed somebody and killed him in a gang fight. And they're like, oh, that was blown out of proportion by media. It was self-defense. Yeah. It was like, I'm gonna let it pass.
Yeah, it's really not easing my thoughts, boys.
Yeah, I still wish I kind of would have done it just because it would be.
I want to hear the story.
Yeah. But yeah, if I knocked him out or something,
Could have been a hell of an obituary.
do you guys?
No kid. Somebody lay on the helicopter on the roof of this thing. We got to.
Yeah, we're out of here. Yeah, I would say, man, I can't, because people ask me that a lot. The coolest place I've fought.
But I will tell you one that I know you did that I think is kind of cool, and it was here domestic, but that's the Fort Campbell.
Oh yeah,
That looked pretty rad.
that was really cool. So, fighting at Fort Campbell in Kentucky, it was a UFC fight for the troops. I don't think they do them anymore.
Yeah,
Fortunately,
that sucks.
but it was cool because we stayed in Nashville, then they bust you. It was like an hour drive to Fort Campbell, and we fought in one of the hangars, and it was only the troops were allowed. It wasn't open to the public. They weren't serving booze. They weren't doing all the like normal things. It was like all these guys were in uniform, and they were like the coolest crowd to fight for because they were hyped.
Oh,
And you knew like it wasn't a bunch of just drunk people like spitting everywhere and everything. Like these guys like really respected it and were big fans of it. And Tim Kennedy was the main event. So they were like, it was cool as an experience, but the actual like back end side of the fighting part was rough because
I was hearing you talk about like they had 2 temporary trailers, but it was for all the fighters on the card to warm up in.
Yeah, and you know how big a temp trailer. So when you're thinking about like warming up, like kicking high pads and stuff, I mean the temp trailer is what, like 8 feet across.
Yeah,
I mean there was no room to move. We were all piled in there, and and then once they were like, "You're up, Camozzi, you're up, let's go." We walked out of the trailer, and we had speakers going. All the fighters were cool with it. Like, yeah, let's play some music. Let's get the energy up. You step out of the trailer, and there was just a van with the doors open. They're like, "Get in." And it was like, "What? Where are we going?" They drive you down the runway, silent. The driver wasn't even listening to anything. It was just dead silent. And I'm sitting between my 2 coaches, like sweating with my gloves on. So just like total mood killer.
like, in a prison transport.
Yeah. And then as soon as you get to like the opening of the hangar, you get out of the van, they're like, all right, you're walking. Like they already had the music going, and you just get out of the van.
Fresh into your walkout.
Yeah. That part was like tough is when it comes to like performing, I guess. But the overall experience was really cool.
And the troops had to be so stoked.
Oh yeah. And then they had like, I think they are, I mean, I might mess these up, but like Black Hawk helicopters in the air around the cage, and like the setup was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's well, and I feel like too, like that's just the right thing. You get a call to be on a card like that, you're like, heck yeah.
Yeah. And it was awesome because my ex-father-in-law actually, who passed away a couple years ago, he got to go because he was a retired Green Beret, and he had actually flown out of Fort Campbell before. he had some like old buddies that were still in the military that came, like high up military guys, and they came. So it was really cool because he still had military clearance.
Sure.
I think they let him come on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool, like experience, because just knowing that he like flew out of there to go overseas, and yeah, it was fun. I mean, I got fucked up a little bit, so that's not good. I went to the hospital for the rest of the night, but
Yeah.
I got a they called it a retinal abrasion. It happened in the first round. I tore something in my eye, and my eye filled with blood. So you couldn't really see the blood, but it filled and I couldn't see anything. So I was blind for like a month.
Oh my God, dude, that has to be a real wicked feeling.
It was weird. Like one punch hit me, and then I was like, all right. I thought my eye swelled up where I was cut.
Right.
Because sometimes when blood's running down, you can't see. And between rounds, I'm asking my coach, like, am I cut? He's like, no. I was like, well, I can't see. Then he was like, all right, well, go get him.
All right, got it, coach. Let's go.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't have wanted him to call it anyway. You know, it's like I could still see with one eye, but it wasn't painful, but that was probably one of the worst injuries I've had.
Sure.
I had to sleep sitting up for like a month because they wanted it to drain. I had to take all these eye drops. I didn't have to have surgery or anything, but just the inconvenience of it. I had to wear an eye patch for a bit, so I looked like a pirate. It was a terrible eye patch. It wasn't even like a cool pirate one. It was like taped to my head.
Yeah. But I think you could pull off a cool pirate one.
Hey, I switched it for that after a minute. I went to like a costume store and got one. I don't know where else you buy an eye patch. I never thought about that.
That's the only place you go.
Yeah.
Party City, let's go, baby.
Yeah. But that one was awesome. I wish they would actually do the fight for the troops more.
Yeah, no, that would be that. Yeah, because I mean, what just a nice way to pay it forward and just say thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
You know?
I almost got to be on one that was going to be in, I think it was Iraq
Oh wow.
during the war. Yeah. Like they were going to take a bunch of guys over there and do a fight like on the base for troops.
That would have been sick.
I don't think it ended up happening, but I was like really pumped about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, especially for people that are, out of the country, away from their family. Like, I mean, even better to be able to give them just a night of
Yeah.
fun and not having to worry about things.
Yeah. Cause that means a lot to those guys. I got a lot of buddies, they're ex-military or in the military, and they're like, you don't understand how much like that little break
Yep.
of entertainment is from just the day to day of shit.
That grind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously we can see your passion for for fighting just through the storytelling and this and that, but you've had an opportunity now later in your career to actually do some training and most recently train your lady, your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience. That, you talk about different things that can bring you together, push you apart, kind of like being stuck in quarantine for 17 days.
Yeah.
Train someone to get ready to go into a fight. I mean, it's intense times.
Yeah. Especially like your loved one,
Exactly.
So like rewinding that, like my family, I guess you could say. So we were telling her like, welcome to the family, because my brother was in the UFC too, my little brother. And he was the LFA champion and all this stuff. And so because I had started taking him to the gym with me when I started. He was one of those kids that he started when he was like 12.
He just grew up in the gym. Yeah.
Yeah. But I always used to hate watching him fight. I cornered him for all of his fights. And I'd want to throw up before. It's like, ugh. Watching somebody you love like get punched in the face or be discouraged because you see how hard they work.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder. I think it's harder to corner people than it is to fight, because you have no control.
That's true.
You're literally just sitting there like, hoping to give good advice, but like you can't do it. It's not happening to you. I would rather be the one in control. So yeah, my brother fought. My sister-in-law, his wife fights. She still fights professionally. And then my girlfriend got the opportunity to do the influencer boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was like flat out no. She told me, she's like, oh, I got offered a fight. I was like, no. Like, she hit mitts and stuff with me for a while, but like never sparred, never did any of that. And I was like, this is way different. You're hitting something that's hitting back. Right. And I was like, no, like push it off. But she thought about it and she's like, well, I really want to try it. I think it would be something really fun and like challenge myself and stuff. So we made a deal. I was like, all right, if you're going to do it though, you're not going to do it like half these other fucking influencers, because I have a love-hate for that whole thing.
Let's talk about that after this.
Yeah. I was like, if you're gonna do it though, let's take it serious.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna go to my gym, you're gonna train twice a day. I was like, do like a real fight camp.
Mm-hmm.
Not any of this like, well, I have this coming up, that I can't make practice. Like, You're going to schedule it out and you're going to actually do it. And she was on board and she stuck to her word and she killed it.
That's
She ended up doing 2. It was supposed to be 3. The promotion, they went under and actually didn't pay everybody on the last one. So we're still going through that.
Yeah.
But it was really cool, man. Like she lost her first one by decision and then she won her second one. And when she won, I was so excited. I was pumped. It was like one of the proudest moments I feel like I've had in my life because it was cool to watch her improvement between the first one, which I told her beforehand. I was like, the problem with your first fight is everything goes out the window.
Yeah.
Could be the most skilled person ever, but if you've never done it, you could have trained for 10 years. And I'm sure Trevor and these other guys can tell you because my first fight, I don't remember hearing anything.
Yeah.
I didn't hear shit. My coach, I remember between rounds, seeing his mouth talking and I was just like looking at him like, yeah.
Got you.
Yeah, but I wasn't hearing anything.
Don't know what I got, but got you, bro.
So I tried to prepare for that as much as possible. I'm like, I'm probably not even going to say a lot to you between rounds. I'm just going to like get you to calm down.
Yeah.
And then the second fight, she came out like so composed and like we were having conversations in the corner. And yeah, man, I can't say like how proud of her I was because she's a model, right? Say she already gets enough hate for things and this and that. And everybody's like, oh, you're pretty. You can't fight. You're not tough, everything. But she's tough. Even her first fight that she lost, like she fought a girl that was my size. The girl was like 6'1" and cut from like 180 something to 145.
Oh, damn.
I kept telling the promoter, I'm like, this girl is not making weight. And he's like, she says she will. And she was my height or I'm like close to it. She was like 6'1". And my girlfriend's 5'9", and didn't cut any weight.
Yeah.
But she still just like battled with that girl and it was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It brought us a lot closer, I think, too.
Sure. Well, and just, for her too, you guys put a plan together, saw it all the way through, you know what I mean? And then to have a good result the second fight, I mean, that's a win-win.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah, it was great. She's debating on if she's going to do any more. She gets some big offers, man. I was like, fuck, why? I went the wrong route.
You're like, hold on. I've been fighting for how many years?
I was fighting in barns and strip clubs in the beginning. And now, like, her first fight was at Wembley.
Yeah. That's pretty large.
Yeah, the second one was at the 3 Arena, and both were sold out. I remember panicking a little bit, walking out with her and being like, what the fuck? How many people came to this?
Right, exactly.
It's bigger than you think. That's why those influencers get paid.
Yeah. No, and that's so. And speaking of that, so I speak about it pretty regular on the podcast when it comes to influencers, because I've kind of got a love-hate to me. That's was my job at Trigger for years. I still have an impact on it now, kind of building out the influencer team and who we work with and this and that. And I just have a problem with people that they think that's going to be their profession in their early 20s. And it's like, okay, great question. What are you going to influence?
Yeah.
Like, what are you actually a subject matter expert at that you're going to provide influence? You know what I mean? Because so many people are just like, oh, that whole FOMO thing, right? It's like, well, those people get to live that lifestyle because they invested a decade.
Yeah, or they're knowledgeable, smaller or not. And even if it is like things like I'm not into gaming or anything, like I kind of get it. The guys that are like world-class gamers, a lot of people follow them.
Sure.
But I follow a lot of specialists and things that I do enjoy, so I don't hate on them for that.
No, it's like, I mean, for us, I guarantee you go through and we're following our hunting buddies and cooking buddies and because that's what we like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you want to follow somebody with some context and something that at least if that's what you want to be as an influencer, somebody that makes you smarter, makes you better at what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Not the like TikTok dances.
Yes.
What's that? Like have a skill. Like I'll respect any skill.
Yeah.
I really will. Even if it's not my thing, but you dedicated yourself into building this skill. Again, like I said, if it's not my thing, but you did it. Like that took work. That took like dedication. It took commitment. It took, practice and practice and practice. It's the people that want to be influencers or whatever. I actually hate that word too. With no talent, no nothing. Like, what do you bring? Like, you just, I don't know.
You just start this alternative persona and hope people stick with it is what it almost is. And it's like, God, this was so cheap. Like you can feel it happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, it's funny to me.
Yeah. But I did enjoy like cornering her on those fights. I got to meet some of the other influencers and stuff. And it was like, some of them I was like, nah. And then other ones I saw like how dedicated they were to training and stuff. Like they showed up with legit coaches.
Yeah.
They were like good at hitting mitts. I'm cool with the influencer stuff if you take it serious.
Right.
Fighting is not a like play thing.
Because you're an influencer, don't come make a mockery of what I do.
Exactly. And I told her that. I was like, don't mock like something I dedicated my entire life to. So like you better do this or I'm not down with it. And I like seeing the ones like, listen, Jake Paul gets a ton of hate, but I've said for a while, like he's a good boxer.
Mhm.
I mean, should he be fighting like Canelo? You know, Canelo's way smaller, but I know he was calling him out for a minute. No. But for the level that he's at and where he's at, he doesn't suck. Everybody wants to shit on him.
Mhm.
He's good.
Yeah.
Dude's got power and he's actually put a lot of time into it, you know? I'm not trying to kiss his ass, but I do appreciate what he's done because he's also helped use his influence to level up the MMA guys and get them paid. And he's been very vocal to Dana about like, you need to take care of these guys better. I respect that.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, he's taking it serious. He's done something with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact, like, Wheatley and some of the, or Tyrone and some of the guys that he was able, that he fought against, he took care of, and used that as a bit of a sounding board.
Yeah. Some of those guys made more money than they ever made.
Yeah.
But they are picking his opponents very well.
Well, I agree. And I feel like too, it brings something like between that, what he's doing and what Barry Knuckles is doing, like, because let's be honest, like the boxing world sucks compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not nearly as you can't find it as much. You can't follow those guys as easily. Like regular good old boxing fight feels dead to me.
Yeah, like who's the heavyweight champion? There's like 4 of them.
Yeah, and well, are the Klitschko's dead? Have they retired? Because if it's not a Klitschko, I have no idea who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how far back it goes from me ever paying attention to boxing anymore.
Yeah, I still watch it. I think the biggest problem though is that the UFC did a great job of, and that's because, if you look into the Ali Act, is a thing in boxing, but it's not in MMA. Where I could be totally wrong on this, or at least wording it wrong, but the Ali Act for boxing stated that no promoter could own your contract. So you could work with certain promoters and they couldn't own you, where the UFC owns you.
Yes.
You're not fighting anywhere else.
Right.
Where it's a free market in boxing. So that doesn't exist in MMA, but you're not seeing the best fight the best. So if there are 2 champions that are heavyweight, say, they might never fight each other.
Mhm.
Because like their promoters and people, like all the back end people can't come to terms.
This number doesn't work for me.
Or we want this channel. We work with Showtime, or we work with who. So it avoids like the best fighting the best, where the UFC is like, if you're in the top 10, you guys are fighting each other.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're busy that weekend, you're showing up.
Yeah. No, I love it. I want to get before we wrap up here, I want to get a quick plug for your podcast because I listened to some of the highlights of it.
Oh, I don't have a podcast
But
anymore.
what, the involuntary yoga's gone?
Nah, yeah. Yeah. I used to do that through the company that I worked for. And then I would like to start up another podcast though here soon. It's just finding the equipment and team. Cause like I said earlier, I'm not a tech person at all. Like the fact that you guys have all this, I wouldn't even know how to connect it.
Hey, I'm not either.
Yeah.
Get to all these people here allow me to where I can just look at my notepad and talk to cool people.
But I appreciate that. I love podcasting, man. That's
What
why
I was just saying, like there were just a couple of cool discussions that I heard on there. Like I love that you had, that's when Scott Parker was on The Enforcer.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how to train as an NFL enforcer. He would wrap his hands in like chain and like hit trees. And he was telling that story about, well, yeah, the bull got a little too close. So I punched the bull. I'm like, dude, this guy's a savage.
He's an animal. I should get him down here tomorrow, maybe, if you guys got time. So I've been friends with their family forever.
Oh, dude, that would be amazing.
Yeah, yesterday, what took me so long when I was telling you guys I was coming down and just say hi is I was talking to his wife for like an hour. So we're like out here in the car talking to her. They're great people, I'm playing in a charity golf tournament. They do for their charity. They do a lot of really cool things, take care of people. And that's called Parker's Platoon.
Awesome.
I can actually say for a fact, like they don't take any salary from it. Everything that they do goes into the charity because, they've invested well and they live off other money. But yeah, they do a lot with veterans and pro athletes.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
So they have a place at Grand Lake here that is open. They call it the clubhouse. Yeah, it's almost like a biker clubhouse, but it's open if you're a pro athlete or a veteran or military. You can drop in without any notice, no money. You can stay there at Grand Lake. They'll set you up with like, if it's winter snowmobiling, they have like boats, they have all this stuff. And they'll just like give you the best weekend or week or however long you need to decompress.
And I feel like Ryan Jansen's building something similar right now up in Evergreen.
Yeah. Okay.
And saying, he wants to do a lot with the veterans and, folks who need to get out, hunt a little bit, need somewhere just like you kind of said, come decompress. That is awesome that they're doing that. I love
Cool, yeah. And he is, like you said, he's a savage, man. That guy is massive too. He's got the biggest hands you probably ever seen.
Yeah, that is so cool. And then the other one that you were talking about, you had Longo on, and he was talking about the day Chris Weidman showed up in his gym and he wanted to fight this wrestler, and he goes, well, dude, you didn't bring a mouthpiece. And he said Weidman looked over on the floor and there was a mouthpiece, and he grabbed it and put it in and said, well,
Yeah, he's like, it'd have been sitting under the cage forever. He's like, I knew that kid had something different about it. Because Longo is one of my favorite people in this sport. I used to go do camps with Weidman. I would go stay in Long Island for, weeks or a month at a time.
Yeah.
And do camps and, hanging out with Longo. He is one of the coolest coaches I've ever met.
Yeah.
Doesn't do it for the money. He's trained. He doesn't get enough respect, honestly. Like Chris Weidman, Matt Serra, Aljamain Sterling. He already has 3 champions.
Yeah.
And he doesn't run like a mega gym.
right. And dude, Sarah back in the day too, like he was a fight nobody wanted to pull.
Yeah, and he's another one. He's great.
Yeah.
That guy has the most energy I've ever seen. Like,
Really?
going to his jiu-jitsu classes, he just comes walking in at 7 a.m. like, what's up, motherfuckers? Who's teaching today? Like, he is always on. And their gym is just like, out in Long Island, there are so many killers. It is nuts. We were talking about wrestling.
Yeah.
I went to their districts championship. It wasn't even like their regionals for high school. And I was like, these kids look like Olympians to me. The moves and stuff I was seeing was like another level, because New York only has 1 state champion in every weight. We have 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A here. They separate them. They have 1.
We got 8 in Florida.
Really?
We're from A to 8A.
Okay, yeah, same kind of thing. They have 1.
Yeah.
So if you were the state champion out of like New York, New Jersey,
You're bad, man.
yeah, you are. I think California even does that.
Shit, if you were to win the state championship in that huge ass state, there's only one classification. That would be sick.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but maybe they don't have a lot of wrestlers anymore either,
That's true.
They've got a lot of female wrestlers.
Yeah. Oh boy. All right, last thing I want to talk to you about is hunting and fishing, man. I know you're an outdoors guy.
Yeah. Man, I love hunting. I actually have not gone the last few years though, big game hunting. Just kind of resetting who I go with, like I said, I was married before, and I used to go with my in-laws and stuff, and your group is everything.
Yep.
So now I've reset, like Luke, Derek, Wolf. Yeah. Like I got a lot of buddies now that are like, come with me. So this year I didn't put in, but I'm going to just buy some over the counter tags and get back out and back to it. But every year I bird hunt at least.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Pheasant hunting, ducks, geese.
I'll tell you, I saw when I was looking at your Instagram, you've done a little bit down in Nebraska, and I got a chance to do the whitetail opener there a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
Did they just raise some big ass deer down there? Holy smokes. It's a fun place to hunt.
Yeah. My boss, so I work for a brokerage called Hoff and Lee here. He owns a farm in, Nebraska. I forget what town. You wouldn't know it if I said it.
Yeah.
There's literally,
We flew into like, our camp was either in Broken Bow or we flew into some like the airport didn't even have a name, old boy. It's like Northeast Nebraska Airport. Like the town's so small, it just has a regional name.
Yeah, like dirt runway probably too. But yeah, so he's got a farm out there. So like we went pheasant hunting, and then this year I might go deer hunting with him too. I've never hunted out of a stand.
Bro, if you get the opportunity to go deer hunting out there, you just say yes, sir.
He's got trail cameras. So he showed me yesterday. He's like, look at this one. Like,
I know.
Just these monster bucks walking around.
So these guys hooked me up. I went out there with my buddy Jerry from the Bearded Buck. And so like for a week, these guys just feed me trail cam photos, and like there's this huge 8. And they had his whole morning routine laid out, right? So I'm like, and they had done it like last 4 mornings in a row. So we kind of go to that area, and we're right before first light, and we're filming a TV show. So of course you got a producer that goes, hey guys, can we get out before daybreak?
Shut the fuck up.
And get a little bit beat and film a little bit of glass and B-roll and this and that. And I'm kind of talking shit in the truck. I'm like, you better get all the fucking B-roll you want right now, because as soon as I lay eyes on this deer, it's down.
Yeah.
And so we get out, we're glassing, and I glass over by this water pump, and I'm like, oh, this can't be right. I got pretty shitty eyesight too, so I grabbed Jerry.
Double check.
I'm like, Jerry, look over at the pump. And he's like, Jerry looks over the pump. He's like, oh, that's the silhouette, man. That's him. I'm like, awesome. All right, everybody just shut the fuck up. Everybody be cool. And I'm a Florida guy, but I ain't seen no deer but that big. I'm used to like a heavy German Shepherd, you know, like that's what I'm used to.
One you could throw on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of wrestle it. And and of course, it's a TV show. So like they're wanting to use a certain shooting stick and this and that. And so one never used a shooting stick before. Just
Yeah, I mean,
shoulder that bitch, let's go. So it's following this path. Guide had set me up where I needed to be. And man, this thing stops like 65, 70 yards broad. And I'm like, oh, this is the shot they all talk about. And I level that thing. And dude, I started shaking like a dog shit in a peak shit. Yeah. And the guy's going, oh, dude, I'm trying to take the safety off. And it's a 6.5 double action. So the fact that I can't get the safety off, I'm like, he's like, all right, you know what? Hey, just chill out. Just chill out. We'll get another shot at it. It starts to move. And so now we move, and this thing keeps moving. And now we're about 220. And it gets to this little clearing where I've got to look at him. Going to set up. I've calmed down. Then he smells the doe. You can tell. And so he turns, and I'm like, well, you going to let this big son of a bitch go, or are you going to go Texas heart shot?
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it was I did go Texas heart shot, and that big old 265-pounder went.
Just drops.
Bro, I just like crumbled it. And I was like, oh, man, when can we come back? Like, do we got another tag?
You probably would have missed the broadheads or the broads. Like, easy, 100 yards, got it. You hit the 220 with him looking away or whatever.
The best was my favorite picture of that whole hunt was, you know, we get back, shot everything needed shot. So by the time we get back, it's like almost lunchtime. And they had lunch for us at the barn. And we go in and eat. I come back out to the truck. And the guide's 2 kids, they're maybe like 5 and 3, have climbed up in the back of the truck, and they're just like laying on this dead ass deer, just like petting it, like, this was a big one, Mr. Chad. You did good. And I'm like, okay, this is our lifestyle. I love this. This is about as old boy as it gets. Right?
It's just inside of it.
Yeah. All I think better was that they'd have been cleaning it. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah, it's a different breed out there.
It is, man. But hey, Chris, I want to thank you so much for the time, brother. It's been absolutely amazing. We flew through this hour.
I know.
So easily. I will tell you, man, like I did enjoy listening to the podcast when you're doing it. If you get an opportunity to do it with somebody, I think you're really gifted at it. I think
thank you.
You should keep going down that road. And then for all your commercial real estate needs here in the greater Denver area.
Yeah, anywhere in Colorado, honestly.
Colorado, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, ranches and stuff, that's where I'm like, all right, cool. Now I can buy ranches for people and shit, but like part of my commission is I get to hunt it.
I'll keep a point. I love it. And then what else? Anything else you want to hit before you get out here? Tell people to follow and check out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm the busiest on Instagram. I can't keep up with all the other ones. I've got the other accounts.
Yeah.
But if I'm honest, I don't do them. Yeah, you can follow me at Chris Camozzi MMA. That's on Instagram. And then other than that, yeah, if you want to buy some property, some buildings or whatever, let's do it.
Awesome, man.
Might even knock some bums out for you.
If you have a homeless camp on that property,
yeah,
Chris can clean it up.
It happens.
It happens. Awesome, man. Well, once again, thanks for the time. I hope you guys had a great time with this podcast. I sure did. And you guys take care, and we'll catch you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Old Boy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, set your notifications, whatever you got to do to make sure you're getting the latest episodes. Also, feel free to go back, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Get some of the past episodes, check those out, and always feel free to check out our socials, Old Boy Podcast. Thank you so much.